campus, for whatever reason. So we landed through research between a lot of platforms, and we landed at Zoom, and that was back in 2015, I believe. And after a lot of testing and trials with many platforms, Zoom seemed to offer the replicating the conventional session that we, or the real time that we have with students, in addition to having tools that we would like to use during our session. Being a learning support department, we needed something that we can share the products, the documents, and be able to edit, annotate. We have live and video and all of that. Back then, I think Zoom was more of a startup, and it offered limited options, but still we saw that it was the perfect a place for us to and we tested that with students, and it seemed like there's a lot of elements that students liked about it. So we went ahead and introduced the service and tested it with a sample of focus group of students, and then a year after that it was part of our operations, and myself and my team began basically adding it as one of the services that we offer to students, and extending it, not just for Writing Center. Now we're extending it to the Tutoring Center, which is also part of the department that we work in, into the Learning Support Department. I'll hand over the next part, which is what we did when we introduced digital services, and what are the challenges, the advantages that we basically noticed. It's now a very crucial discussion that a lot of institutions are having, because there is a movement towards e-learning and digital resources in the industry of education, not just in higher education. So my outstanding staff, some of them, Hala Butros and Mariam Timtami, are here, and they also are part of this research process that I've been conducting for a while, and they themselves hold Zoom sessions, writing sessions with students, and they will share their experiences with you. And after that, feel free to ask us anything. So Hala, go ahead.
Thank you, Hanouf. Hello, everybody. So as Hanouf mentioned, when we went to online tools, when we looked at online platforms to hold Writing Center sessions on, we were thinking about adapting to demands, student demands. So in terms of the student population and the number of visits that we were getting, whether we were getting more female than male visitors, we were getting more students with special needs that need different types of accommodations, whether in terms of mobility issues, or when it comes to students who don't have the option to come to campus late at night, or they don't have the option to come to campus during certain times when the Writing Center is open. And that's when we introduced online conferencing, and Zoom stood out because it was one of the tools that can, it provided so many tools that can mimic a session at the Writing Center with the document sharing, recording. Recording was an added feature, of course, but document sharing, annotation, and also the ease of use. Many students were able to use it straight away. It wasn't that difficult to get used to. There wasn't much of a learning curve. So to us, Zoom was a very successful tool to use at the Writing Center. And we started a campaign using tools and using Zoom and identifying, the tools that we can use at the Writing Center. Most students were very satisfied with Zoom. We got many of our frequent visitors using Zoom during the first few months. We had one very dedicated student who had mobility issues, and he was very happy that we offered this service, because to him this is much easier. He was very tech savvy, and he could join online, and he can conduct the session without ever having to come to campus. I personally had a session that was very successful when a student wanted to fit in a session between his workout in the gym and going back home to work on his assignment. And this was a time when the Writing Center wasn't available at that time. It was after hours, after 5 p.m. And the student managed to join a session from his car. So he was parked after leaving the gym, and he had his textbook with him, and he showed me parts of his textbook. He flipped the camera, he showed parts of his textbooks that he wanted to ask questions about, and we managed to have a session online that was engaging, and it was very successful, but it didn't it wasn't restricted to the conventions of the regular writing center session. So these are all strategies that we've adapted online to help students with their accessing the service without being constrained to coming in at a certain time or coming into a physical space. One thing that we realized is that these sessions were successful because students were very open to using the tools in Zoom. So such as the camera, the voice, the annotation tools. We had more other sessions that were maybe less successful that we needed to adapt in order to make beneficial for the student and to have it become a session that the student can really get engaged in. So for example, there are many students who don't prefer to use camera. There's one student that just recently, 2 days ago, AUK started e-learning, and we launched an open room for Zoom that students can come in for the writing center and the tutoring center. They can come and ask questions about how to use the service and how we can conduct the sessions online. And there was a student who wasn't comfortable using the voice recording. So she wasn't comfortable putting the mic on. So she would just type her questions in the chat and I would be responding. In a regular session, this would have been difficult because writing center practice is based so much on nuances in nonverbal communication. When a student comes in with a paper or with something they want to talk about, we want to know what they're finding difficulty with. We kind of sense their frustration, we sense parts where they're vulnerable, and all of these define how we respond as consultants in a session. So when face-to-face isn't an option, when students don't like to open the camera or they don't use the mic, then it becomes, you know, a little bit of a challenge for the consultant to kind of overcome these barriers. And that's what we're trying to get our students used to. Like, how can you join a session and be comfortable to talk with a consultant one-on-one? And we assure them with the security options that Zoom has, such as locking the meeting and making sure that no one is going, I mean, this session will be recorded, but it's only for your eyes and for the Writing Center staff for assessment purposes. And some of the students get used to that after a little bit of time. It takes a little bit of time for them to open up. But what I like about virtual and online sessions is that I feel that it can become just like a face-to-face session at the Writing Center. When all the tools are available and we can actually use the annotation, especially annotation and things like a whiteboard. Students feel comfortable when we show them, you know, our handwriting. If you're using an iPad and you write on the whiteboard, it gives it this personal touch. They're not just talking to a computer, they're talking to a person there and they're responding, and we're showing them, you know, that there is that human element. So that's much important when we're trying to break the barriers to online learning and getting students more adapted to online learning, especially in this situation. So that's one thing that we went through by adapting to Zoom, and now we're starting Zoom sessions online, and we're using it to schedule using our own scheduling system that we have used at the Writing Center ever since it began. Tutor Track. I don't know if any of you use the scheduling system, but it's very helpful. So we've adapted a way that students can just use the familiar scheduling system that they're used to, booking sessions at the Writing Center, and then we send them an individual link, and they get access to the meeting. Yes, there are more experiences. I mean, I've had a couple of sessions on Zoom on and off ever since we began in 2015. And my colleague Mariam also has many sessions. She'd had many sessions on Zoom, and today actually she has a full schedule in the afternoon. So I'd hand it over to Mariam to tell you more about her experience using Zoom as an online tool for writing sessions.
Thank you, Hala. This was great. So yeah, I'd like to focus on how the transition from physical to virtual environment at the Writing Center was not difficult. Before even e-learning became an option for students, we had requests. We saw many students wanting to continue working on their assignments. So we got requests via email a month ago of students who already were given the assignment sheets before this crisis and wanted to start working on them, especially that they're free now, they're less occupied with other duties. So one of the very first requests was of a student who is physically disabled. So this student used to book sessions with Writing Center staff and student consultants, and always used to cancel last minute. So we could see that she found coming to the center something difficult. So she started making those bookings towards like the afternoon between 4 and 5 p.m. And she thought like Zoom was a good option for her. When this crisis started, she was the first one who requested for help. She made use out of the service. She liked it. She adapted herself easily, and she already got her assignment done in 2 days through video conferencing with staff members at the Writing Center. So this is to stress on the point that physically disabled students find it difficult to come to the center, and having alternative options of them, booking sessions on Zoom is something that they appreciated. Also, during the crisis, we have noticed something different. So we started e-learning, as my colleague said, 2 days ago or 3 days ago, and we got requests of male students. So the initial plan was to attract more male students, and we are already receiving so many male students who want to get help on the writing. This says a lot about maybe how this environment is making it maybe less of a stress for male students to step at the center and like meet with a writing consultant. Maybe those male students are more free now, or maybe they're new to this whole e-learning experience and they just want to be supported by a service. So that was another interesting observation that I noticed this week. So I had around like 5 sessions so far, and I have 3 sessions in the afternoon today. And those students are working so hard. I can see improvement. I can see them even using the tools very flexibly. They log into Zoom very easily, and they apply the changes immediately. They ask for follow-up sessions. So I see how this tool is working so great with male students. And I believe we are achieving one of our initial objectives of attracting this pool of students. This is having Zoom implemented like a while ago, since 2015, has made this transition very easy for us. So now we don't feel that we need to get training on anything. So as soon as we saw e-learning is becoming an option for students, it was easy for us to shift all operations through Zoom. We will be probably in the future involving more of our team, like student employees and student consultants, and also some of them are familiar with this tool. They've got some training through the past years. So we feel even like expanding on the service and like including more of our team members would be something that's not difficult. We have, since the e-learning has become an obligation for students, we had students voluntarily reaching out, and this is, we haven't asked them to book sessions, we haven't been advertising for the service, and this is a good indication that probably students feel that it's not so difficult for them to transition, or like they don't see the difference between them getting the service either in physical environments or virtually. So I also noticed that these student consultants, as soon as they know that these online sessions are offered by staff members or offered by members of in the team who are already, who they can associate with, or who they know previously, has made also the transition very easy. So as soon as they can identify our names on the schedule, they immediately book with us, and this has increased our traffic in the past days. So I feel like the connection we have established with our students through the past years, and having them trust us, and having them trust the type of service we provide, made them come to us immediately when this was available, when this service was available for the entire population of e-learning students. So this has reminded me of how we reached out to students when Zoom was first established. I remember, like, we had a lot of students who were very excited about this tool. We went down, through the corridors, and we tried to interact with so many students with our devices, and we had Zoom rooms open with available meetings open with members who are already connected from the center, and we allowed students to use the annotation tools. We allowed them to interact with the staff who are who are connected via Zoom. And I remember we got a lot of students who got so interested to sign up and to use the service. So we usually got requests of students wanting help during weekends, during after hours, students who are physically disabled, or students who are introverts or don't feel like, they want to see someone physically. And I believe, overall, I believe this service has, having it something that we worked on the past years, has made this transition very easy. And now we are adapting it to all these students. We're receiving so many requests, and so please feel free to ask any questions.
I'll just want to add a couple of things, Marianne, before we open up the floor to people, participants who would like to ask questions. So just because this is our first student, affairs conference, so we're trying to talk less about writing the practice itself, and more about, serving the student population, and what are the things that we can add, to all the, professionals who are attending this session, who could use, as information. I'm assuming everybody now is attempting to transfer, or at least to have the option to have their services on digital platforms. So one of the things the learning support department, which is the department that I direct and has writing and tutoring centers underneath it, is trying to always find practicality in the way that we run things, because we have a huge population of student employees who work in the department. So we have anywhere between 45 to 50 student employees who work with us, in addition to the 5 staff members that basically run and manage the centers. Those student employees are, for the majority of them, they are writing consultants. So they work at the writing center, and they basically consult students. That's what we call them. Some writing centers call them tutors as well. And then we have peer tutors, which the tutor center is more of a center that receives the population of engineering and business-oriented requests. So we try to find practical, solutions to manage the centers, which experience heavy traffic for the majority of the time. So I would say since 2013, I've been trying to look for solutions to have management have an easier time to manage the practical issues that normally you would face in operations, which is, logging students in and out. How would you track the shift? How would you manage your shift? How would you do that? And at the same time, monitor the sessions and monitor the quality of the sessions, and make sure that you're offering the best or sharing the best knowledge that you could do. So one of the things that we did, and this is also proven to be very helpful right now, because we're transitioning into digital services and e-learning is the attendance mechanism. So the attendance of student employees and tracking their shift is being done through a software called TimeStation, which I think we've adapted since 2013 or 14, I can't remember. And that basically is an app, or it also could be a web-based, and it's a QR code, based. And what we did is just issue QR code cards for students, and they would come in and then basically do it through an iPad. So they would face the camera on the iPad, and this logs them in and out. So the card itself with a QR code logs them digitally. And now that we are moving towards, offering sessions online, and we're already doing that, with students, and we have a schedule running, we can easily do that also online, and without having them physically to do that. So they can actually log themselves in through that, platform, which is TimeStation again, and they could do it. The staff could do it, and student employees could do it. So that's also is proven to be something that is so useful for us now. I'm so happy that we haven't relied on manual stuff. We would have a problem now trying to track, the time spent, and knowing the shifts that being spent on Zoom, how we track the hours of our student employees, and based on that, how we issue payment at the end of each month. So this transition, has proven that digital platforms actually are an added asset, even though, at the beginning we weren't sure, is it worth all of that? Is it worth of us changing the dynamic of the management? But, I think one of the advantages that we're all in the department are kind of like tech savvies, and we would like to have, the least time spent on management and operations. So TimeStation is one of them. Tutor Track, which I think, a lot of people are familiar with, is another appointment system. So that's also now is proven to be very useful. And scheduling shifts and knowing basically who's coming and who's going to be online, and that's visible to students. So students know when do we open now and when do we close, even though we're not physically there on campus. So they can access, the schedule and know that, Hanouf is here from 1 to 2 and Hala is from 3 to 5, or they have evening shifts now. So all they have to do is log in from home and know basically who's available for booking appointments and how can they access us. So as Hala explained, the minute they book the appointment, we're notified and we can send them a link to Zoom. Or actually there are certain things in the software you can adjust that the confirmation of appointment can also include a link to the platform, a Zoom meeting, and then they can automatically log in whenever is possible. Certain things also were of concern. For instance, we have a recording option for our sessions now through Zoom, which we didn't have a while ago. And the recording option was added with other features recently. So they keep developing the platform for I guess the clients to use more of the service. So the recording option now has an added feature, which is a consent. There's a disclaimer that, basically we can share with students to make sure that they're okay with us recording the session. And recording was one of the features that made, this whole e-learning experience much more also of an added advantage, because some of our students kind of struggle in retaining information. And they don't have to be just special needs students. I mean, students with, your average anxiety, through midterms or finals or whatever. And sometimes we realize that they come for excessive time of visits just because they're nervous. They can't seem to recall what happened, in the previous session. So, recording the session has proven to be something that students like. They can walk away with that information, knowing that we can, always share the recording with them, and they have this knowledge stored with them somewhere. They can go back to it as a reference and improve whatever they're working on. So those are things that we believe that it was brought with the adaptation of our services from the conventional setting into the digital sense. So it's a time where we felt like now that the institution AUK is moving towards e-learning, and it has been greatly supportive. now staff have all licensed, account for Zoom, so we have more even tools and features that we can use throughout the session, and we can benefit from that. And it's just a time that a lot of us can be kind of like anxious about, how can we provide the service and make sure that it's not only efficient but also so appealing to students. They would come and ask for help, and they would come to use the services. So maybe we have a bit of advantage that at the department that we have started this a while ago, and now is just we're going full blown digital service. So we're using all those platforms that we have in the department, but at the same time we're also serving a diverse population of students. Some of them might be familiar with this and they have visited the center before and they know what we're offering and all of that. And some of them are freshmen. They haven't heard of learning support, and they don't know what online sessions are or could be. And that's something that it takes also a bit of an effort on our part to communicate with students and make sure that they know everything about this session. They are comforted before coming in. They know the kind of tools that they are allowed to use, and the advantages that this can bring them. So although we are apart and we don't get to see them on one-on-one sessions, we don't get to have that connection, because it is a very social environment, and it is a very personal setting, and it's a very dynamic environment in both centers actually, and students know that, and they are part of making it what it is now. We try to transfer that through our digital existence now. So it also takes a bit of an effort and management and planning between myself and my team on how do we manage this, how do we present ourselves, what kind of conversations we're having with students aside from or outside from the academic transferring of information. How do we make sure that students whether freshmen or seniors or special needs or otherwise exactly know that what we do is what we're doing, and even though we're not there, but we are here for them, and this is the kind of connection we want to maintain, because I assume that many of them are anxious now and trying to figure out how to navigate the services campus is offering. So that's basically what I wanted to add at the end, and I think we have about 7 minutes for anyone who have any questions. And I'll try to check the chat to see if you guys have any questions there, but feel free to speak.
As Hala mentioned, or Hanouf mentioned, excuse me, feel free to unmute yourself if you want to ask a question. You can also put something in the chat. We'll be happy to follow that. There was one comment made before that I kind of have a question on. That was about statistics and usage. Is there anything you can speak to that, either you or Hala or others, about how you've seen those? I know you've tracked that information. Anything that you could share about that from your experience over the years?
So yes, the numbers of students who have adapted to Zoom became a gradual kind of phenomena. So we had very few students who really needed the service. So there's not really an interest for the rest of students who could access the center and could come anytime they want to from 9 to 5. So we would have maybe a couple of students throughout the month when we first started, but the center as a whole, as I said, could have, for instance, the writing center received 900 plus students just in the previous fall semester. And the tutoring center, I think it was something around like 500 some students in just one semester. So there is a heavy traffic coming into the center, but that wasn't transferred into the same thing that wasn't seen at Zoom session. Again, they're competing with something that it's very strong, which is the actual setting of the center. We have really beautiful space, and there's always something going on, and students are loving coming there and having those roundtable discussions, and they can have breakout rooms. We have quiet study rooms, we have meeting rooms. So Zoom was always something that was lost in all of that. So I competed with all of that. So I wouldn't say that there was a heavy traffic on Zoom, but it actually built up gradually. And maybe Hala could tell you that, she has seen, and Mariam as well, more students had identifying it as, we went ahead and kept on, basically holding campaigns and going out on campus and making sure that students know that it exists, and having creative, campaigns, with iPads, and having students, kind of talked with tutors who were sitting at the center and were downstairs. And, so all of these things were just efforts to kind of orient students, towards the added service. But Hala, if you could say something about the buildup of traffic.
Yeah, so we started advertising it to freshman students through our workshops as part of the first year experience. And after doing that, we started getting more traffic on Zoom. Students started using it as a way to seek help during the busy times. So during midterms and finals, the writing center is usually fully booked, even with 13 and 14 other consultants besides myself and Mariam. As staff, we also had fully booked schedules. So students, when they couldn't find an availability to use the service in person, they would book online sessions. So I've had a peak in online sessions during midterms last semester, but still it wasn't that many because it was more of a last minute resort to some students when they had a midterm the next day and they needed to finalize this paper, they needed to hand it in. So that was in terms of Zoom this past fall semester, and that's when it started picking up actually. Before that, it was mainly students who were special needs, who had certain time constraints, working students who had other occupations, outside of campus. So these were the students utilizing the service much more than the regular students who could be on campus and could come to the center between classes.
There's a question about us holding workshops. We haven't tried holding workshops online, but we will be. It is something that we have to do because part of our operations is actually having annual workshops with the different disciplines, not just writing courses. We have graphic design workshops, we have communication workshops offered for the communication students. So, writing workshops were offered at the center throughout the semester. So that's something we have to transfer now into Zoom. So it'll be interesting to see, hosting a large number of students and how would that dynamic go. That's something I'm looking forward to. I think my staff and I were going to come up with creative ideas to engage students throughout that workshop. Another question about, do I think that this service will be gradually replacing the one-on-one dynamic that the learning support is known for? I don't think that one can replace the other. I think it's an added value to what we do. I believe that one-on-one sessions will always be something that characterizes what learning support does. Individual sessions are always have more of an advantage over the online services, but you never know. The world is changing, and we're always going to be adapting. And I don't know how long this social distancing is going to go on for. So I'm just really happy and fortunate to have a department that adapted so quickly to the services and the change that we've noticed. We just literally started e-learning in 3 days, and normally we don't receive Zoom sessions in a normal semester until maybe 2 months into the semester. But right now, and as Mariam was saying, we have at least 3 or 4 sessions already booked, and we and my staff held sessions in the past 2 days. So that's something we haven't seen before. That means that when there is a need, those services are utilized. This platform is utilized. So we're just, we're going to take it one day at a time. And that's basically what we're doing. But I see that our time is up. Hala posted the email for the center. You feel free to contact us if you guys have any question, if you want us to share with you any kind of information, and if you need our feedback on anything else and you didn't have the time to ask us during this session, we'll be more than happy to share this information. And thank you everyone for attending the session.
Yes, I would like to thank Hanouf, Hala, and Miriam for facilitating today's session and conversation on Writing Center Redefined. As you mentioned several times throughout the conversation, we are all facing this issue now. So I think we can empathize and relate to what students may be going through and how this service can support us in various ways. So again, I want to thank our three presenters from the American University of Kuwait. A reminder that we are going to be starting the Manassa open board meeting here in just a few minutes. That'll probably take about half an hour, 45 minutes, and that will be followed by our closing remarks and closing of the conference. So I encourage you all to join that link for that session that will be starting here in just a few minutes. So again, thank you to our presenters. Thank you for attending this session. We hope to see you in the next session. Have a good day.
Thanks, Dad. Thanks, everyone. Stay safe. Bye.